Anyway, so I'm going to start with Red Emperor. Now, I know a lot of people think it's predominantly a deep water fish, but you'd be quite surprised that they do turn up shallow, quite often. And, your best efforts when hunting them, not so much diving as deep as you possibly can, best to just look for the right kind of ground that you'll find them on. There's no point pushing yourself to 25 metres if you're not comfortable to do it, because, I shot 2 good Red Emperor now, and the deepest one was 14 metres, and another one at 12, so I've shot them deeper, but actually they're the smaller fish, so, your best effort's definitely looking for the right type of ground, not pushing yourself to your limits and putting yourself at risk to black out, especially because the place you're diving is going to be probably going to be a lot of current, especially further north. Once you go up to Exmouth Way, you're going to be dirty water, you're not going to be able to see the bottom from the boat. You're going to be diving off mermaid lines, you're going to need good dive buddies. There's a lot more risk and a lot more, risk to really put yourself out there to get the fish. That's where having really good dive buddies, good partners, people you're comfortable with, comfortable in your gear and your boat and your setup, and just being really patient as well.
What does good ground look like?
Well, we'll get into that, mate.
Leave the questions until the end of it.
But yeah, the ground you're going to find, it's not something you're going to look for on your big, you're not going to dive something like a big reef system like the Ningaloo or anything like that. You're going to be diving sort of where the depth change is very gradual, kind of low-lying ground. Most of the time you're looking just for small ledges. It can only be like 1 foot, half a metre off the bottom, where the ground's just very flat. Sometimes even just rubble, not even a ledge or anything like that. And it can have a lot of life, or there can be a ledge in the distance nearby, and you can just be diving around a certain area. Like a lot of places where you're going to be targeting these, maybe Shark Bay, Carnarvon Way, where they start to turn up. Now you're not going to be diving them for them off the back of the cliffs or something like that. I'm sure that there are exceptions to the case where just one randomly pops up, but you're more so going to find them in the flats, in the sort of gradual depth change. Think about between top end of Dirk or to the Dorrien Bernier, or then when you go further north up around Exmouth or further and further, where you get that sort of very gradual depth change where you get muddy bottom, rubble, limestone, small ledges, and the ledges are going to have a lot of life on them. For something it might only be, it can be sand, mud bottom, it might have a small coral, limestone ledge like that. There can be a lot of bait around, a lot of bait mid-water above it. You're going to find a lot of rankin cod when you're looking for reds. And then when you're driving between spots and you're looking on your charts, you're looking on your sounder, where it looks like it's just flat ground, and then your sounder lights up, just a small ledge, you might see a bit of bait above it. It's definitely worth just jumping out, just having a look, even if you're not sure, it could be nothing. If you got just send one diver over, just a quick scouting dive to have a look, see what the ledge looks like. Those can be the kind of spots where you just randomly pop up and you'll find a Red Emperor just sitting there. And then, I suppose, diving techniques and working the ground, especially when you go further north, once you start to get to Exmouth, then you're going to start to get the big tides, and further for the guys who go all the way up to Karratha for them. You're going to be, a lot of time it's going to be really green water. It's not going to be, if you're diving 16, 18 metres or something like that, 18 metre viz up there isn't that common. So you're going to be, when you've got the boat anchored, ideally you're going to want to anchor on the ledge or just in front of it, have a mermaid line running out from the boat, just like a float line that runs out for 30 metres. This helps a lot in big current, especially these kind of places where you find them. So you're going to have, blind diving. You're going to be floating on the surface, breathing up. You're not going to be able to see the bottom. You're not going to know where the reef is or the ledge is. That's where having the boat anchored is a good marking to find out where you are to the ledge. You might dive down, the ledge is there's 20 metres to the right. That's where a bit of life is. That's where you come up from your dive, you tell your dive buddy. That way he can let go on the mermaid line. He can swim off to the side when he dives in the current. Then when he comes up, you can swim back up, grab on the mermaid line and breathe up nice and comfortably. You don't have to worry about kicking against the current, and it keeps you positioning in the water quite easily. It's quite easy to just dive straight on the ledge once you get your positioning just right. Other things to consider as well is, sorry, I lost my spot here. Burley as well. Now, when you go a long way north, sharks are a bit of a problem. So you're not going to want to, like, you know, just throw stupid amounts of burley in the bottom. Like, they do respond well to burley, surprisingly, but you can't just sit there off the back of the boat just chumming up. Ideally, you know, you can just find the fish. You don't have to burley up, but if you do want to, you can't just sit there on the back just chumming it up, because the burley, it's either going to drift away in the current, or it's never going to make it halfway down there. You know, you're going to have trevally coming through, just clean it up. Nothing's going to make it to the bottom. So the guys that do burley for them, if they know the ground, they know the ledge, and there might be reds in the area, they might drop a burley bomb or something like on the bottom. So the burley, if you can just get a little cage or something, you can release on the bottom. But that's if you're really keen, you know the ledge, you know the ground, and that's where you're going to find your fish. Now, the last part, I suppose, about shooting them is while they're hard fish to find, they're not really a hard fish to shoot. Like, they're very curious, not really like overly sensitive, easy to approach. There's a lot of guys like from East Coast and stuff like that who'll bang them with 90 centimetre guns all the time. So your average reef gun you use around Perth here, or when you go up the coast, you're absolutely fine. Like a 1.1, 1.2, just speed spear, single rubber, twin rubber, roller, whatever you're using, it'll get the job done. So I've got a couple of videos here that Rory's got on the laptop. So this one I've actually just turned it on after I've pulled the trigger. But you can see there, that's just on sandy bottom. And there's a ledge about 30 metres away, so all I've had to do is just drop down, and I just swam away just a little bit off the ledge, just to have a look on the sand, and he was just sitting there, like literally come down on top of him. It was a 30-second dive, and that would have been just 14, 15 metres to shoot it. So that's a quite easy red emperor to get. And so a lot of people think you have to go like super deep to really get a nice red. Just not required, just to find the right ground that the fish are on. So that's an 8.5 kilo red there, and there, like, didn't move. Glide straight onto him. You can put a spear straight through the top of its head, out through its gills. And just click on the other video now. And the next video here, this is a little bit shallower. This is probably 12 metres to the bottom, and I just come up from a dive. It would have only been 8 metre viz, and yeah, like I was saying, they are quite curious. Like, I didn't even see him on the dive before. He followed me up, and I looked down when I took my breath of air from the surface, and he was just sitting underneath me. As I started to dive down, he just glided away. And this is another 8 kilo red as well. And so that's only 12 metres to the bottom. And again, but didn't, just cruising. It's very much like a dewie. They just kind of angle their body away a little bit. They'll look at you sort of behind. Just give the thumbs up to the dive buddy to know you're on. And yeah, it's actually like the hardest part is just putting the hard yards to find the fish. You're going to be diving a lot of flat bottom. You might dive a lot of ground that's, looks a little bit dull and boring, but then at the same time, you can be diving these places and there can just be fish life galore. And another good thing about these kind of spots as well up north, like these is up Exmouth, like the bycatch on these grounds, if you're into shooting big rankings, if you haven't shot one before, trust me, you will get sick of them if you dive for reds a lot because they're just everywhere. But you can shoot big rankings, big bar cheek trout. What else we get on there? You might, if you get real lucky, you might even find a largemouth nanagai or something like that. Smallmouth, tuskies. The bycatch is just as good as the red emperor, really. So I think that's pretty much the gist of it. If there's any questions anyone wants to ask.
Yeah, can you send me the GPS coordinates?
A lot of these spots are like, I've just been driving the boat between islands, and then you see a little small ledge, a bit of rubble, and then, just anchor up, work the ground a bit. Like, these are really, really, really dirty water, like some of these days and that. So again, having good dive buddies, if you're hanging off your mermaid line, dive, even if it's spring tides, like diving the tide change where there's no current, and then communicating with your dive buddy, oh yeah, I saw a bit of life, 20 metres to the side of the boat, that way you breathe up, dive up current, you can drop down in that spot, and you can just pass information on back and forth. And just working the ground like that, it's just your best way to find them. And sometimes, yeah, like I said before, you don't have to be diving right on the ledge, they can be in the area around it. So just diving 10 or 20 metres away, like they can be sitting out there on the sand. But yeah, you'll find where you find the life on nice, flat, level ground, the depth change is very gradual, that's where you find the fish.
most common from Exmouth North, you would say?
I suppose the places between, you think between Carnarvon and Exmouth, in between that is, you know, a bit touch and go. They're hard work to find. From Exmouth North, like, you know, quite common, you can target them fairly regularly, like guys who do with the good weather. But I know, I mean, I've even heard of the Port Gregory caravan park owner was saying he's seen Spiros come up there from Geraldton and come back with a couple of reds. So they do get them fairly south, and I've heard of the odd small one being found at Abrolhos. But generally, you know, from Carnarvon, I'm sure there's spots out there. I haven't found them out there yet, but, you know, someone else wants to put in the hard yards, I'm sure they'll be around. But yeah, from Exmouth onwards, that's where they're quite a easy fish to target.
The talk about in winter, they generally come into a bit shallower water.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Well, like the second one I got there was in the middle of summer, you know, when it was like 26, 27. But yeah, supposedly when the water does cool off, like they do like that deeper, cooler water, when the winter time, when the water cools off, they'll come up a lot shallower. Like I've probably not experienced enough to say whether that's right or wrong, but yeah, that is what I believe. And a lot of linos reckon they are quite I suppose, an aggressive fish. Like when they find spots with them on, they drop baits or drop burley. You know, they're the first ones to hook. If there's reds down there, they get them within the first couple of drops. You know, they're quite aggressive. So if there is a bit of life, or, you know, you make a bit of noise or commotion, they're curious enough to come in and check it out. So that can be, if they're there, you generally know sooner rather than later. Anything else?
Another thing, when I was up there, I spoke to some of the Exmouth locals. They were saying that they had a spot they get rankings on, and they've dove this spot year after year. And they went to it one time, and yeah, there was a school of reds on it. So just because one time doesn't have the fish, it's probably worth keeping the spot and checking it. It's got a lot of life, like you're saying, when they come in.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so like same things when we dive for dewies down here. You know, just if it looks good, there's a bit of life. Just because there's not a dewie there that day doesn't mean in that winter time or another time of year that the schools, obviously they move around a lot, so the schools of fish will move in and out. You could get really lucky, could get a big school of them there, and everyone can take turns and plug in a big one each. And if there's no more questions. All right, thanks very much.